That's the interesting aspect there. Now I'm curious what you're going to say about China, because I have my own data I have compiled here. So we'll talk about that also. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, please. Okay, can I get the presentation on?
Yes.
You know, when you look at China, you have to look at it from different angles. Now, this article, I'm going to talk of this article because very important article. Why China won't help Iran? Who's it written by? Yun Sun. Who's Yun Sun? She's in Stimson Center. Who's she? She's a Chinese. She is a Chinese plant in Stimson Center. Complete, and she was at a very young age, brilliant scholar. She was parachuted into this place. What does the headline say? Beijing cares about the oil, not the regime. It tells everything. Actually, after this, I shouldn't be talking more, but I'll. This is the end of the story as far as China is concerned. What's really China really doing behind the scenes? But let's analyze it for our own understanding. If you don't understand, then you think that China is a bloody super dragon. This is a super dragon without oil. ना तेल नहीं है तो वो धुआं भी नहीं आएगा. See what she highlights. She says, look, China and Iran signed a 25-year, 400 billion strategic partnership in 2021. It was all about economic security and all that. Now, the point is Iran is stuck between its opposition to the US and the need to reach a deal with the US at this point of time. It's stuck. And this lady talks. She says they're stuck between their theological conservative roots and the need for reforms. This is Iran. This is the way China is looking at them. Then he says Chinese feel that Iran has failed to demonstrate enough resolve to directly confront its adversaries. And she quotes the case of Qasem Soleimani, who was, killed in Iraq in an airport. He was assassinated. He says Iran didn't respond. Same thing, Iranian embassy was bombed in 2024 in Syria. They didn't respond. They let the job be done by proxies. They didn't do a direct thing. And then the overall Iranian response, when Hezbollah and Hamas were decimated by Israel, was also weak. Overall, China is disappointed in the Iran's response. It's everything. They feel that it's a weak state. This is important. And they are also worried about the internal failures of the regime. Okay. And then she talks of China. She says, after the last 12-day war against Iran in June, China offered only boilerplate diplomatic rhetoric. These are the exact words. Can you imagine that how China is projecting itself? The harshest language China used or willing to use was condemnation. We condemn Khomeini's death. That's all. They have not condemned US so far for the thing. They have not questioned US. They have not taken US name. And he says, look, right from the time when she says, October 7, 23, from the day Hamas had attacked Israel, China has been disappointed with the way Iran has reacted overall. And its own credibility as a regional power, they have come into question. Now, all this is latent feeling within China. So, why will China help Iran? She's explaining the logic. And then now she says China is not bothered what's happening in Iran. They'll deal with anyone who comes along. As far as it protects their oil flow and it prioritizes their economic interests. That's the thing. This is all reference research by a Chinese. Though, unless the Strait of Hormuz closes and China is in a dire state, China will not use its military as per them. It will remain on the sidelines. Even then, it will not come in direct confrontation. It doesn't have capability. Now, there's this article by Zinab Ribau which says Iran is all about China. This is the view from this side. Iran is only a stepping stone, which I've discussed, and I hold to that view still. Irrespective of the outcomes in this war between USA and Iran, China is getting hit. Any way you look at it, China will get hit. And that Trump has succeeded. I have no doubt about it. And listen to this 1 minute clip.
Our contention is this whole Iran thing. The whole Iran thing is all about China and the rise of the Indo-Pacific century. Give me that thesis as succinctly as you can as we finish.
I would say that that China cannot rise without having the United States weakened in one of the most important regions in the world, being the Middle East. Iran has been that tool. It has China has built Iran's military arsenal. It has collaborated extensively with its proxies, especially the Houthis who are doing this blockade in the Red Sea, and reversing that calculus is what Operation Epic Fury doing, and I think that this is absolutely crucial when watching next events unfolding.
Right, this is what she had to say, that for China, Iran is a pivot. It's a stepping stone for rise. If that doesn't happen, China doesn't rise. China won't rise for many other reasons that we'll talk of. Okay. Now, let's look at China internally. If you don't understand what's happening in China, then you'll think, like I said, the dragon is going to come swimming through the Indian Ocean, Malacca Strait, Eyre Strait, Wo Strait, and then finally sink in, Arabian Sea. See the headlines. China, Trump's visit and priority for this year's 2 sessions. The 2 sessions is their annual parliamentary session. It is ongoing at this point of time. It's a week-long thing. But the first day is when the budget is presented. What is their criticality? It is about China and Trump's visit. Why do they want Trump's visit? Why is that a criticality? Because they want American markets. If the American markets don't open, they're sunk. Over. All this nonsense is over. That is why they are not opening. One little word is not coming out of China. Please understand this. See where they are. अरे इंडिया में तो हम बोल लेते हैं कुछ तो. No one has required China to be anywhere around in this war, have they? Neither USA nor Iran nor this thing, but everyone wants India now. So you see the change which is happening. Enough of our idiots talking high about China. What are the takeaways from the Li Qiang's report or other work report, and what's his budget? We need to understand this to understand what's happening in China. What's really China doing behind the scenes? If you don't understand that, then there's nothing. See, this is it. He set a growth rate of 4.5 to 5% this year. They can't achieve that. Last year also they didn't achieve it. By many standards, they've contracted, but they'll not talk of it. They lie. And officially, this is the least ambitious growth since the 1990s. They want high quality growth because that is what Xi Jinping says. Okay. Key targets. They have said 4.5 to 5%. 2025 it was 5%. Now it has gone down to 4%, which they'll not achieve. I'm telling you now. They want to find 12 million new jobs, which they don't have. Just think how this story is going to affect them. No oil going in. No factories will run. If factories don't run, their export doesn't take place. If export doesn't take place, no money goes and nothing. So where will they get 12 million urban jobs from? But that's what they say. They want a CPI, Consumer Price Index, of approximately 2%. This is dreamland. Because 2024, their CPI rose 0.21%. 2025, it was CPI was flat, 0% for the whole year. This is their economy. Both those years, when it was 0.21%, their target was 3%. When it was 0%, it was 2% CPI. If CPI doesn't grow, there's deflation. Their economy is contracting. See, this very slide tells you there's something wrong with their economy. Grossly wrong. This is official figures, mind you. Okay. They want to go on innovation and technology. They want to be on AI, but all that fine. We know AI, they're well ahead of the loop in AI. Fine. What will they do with that AI after that? Their military spending, they want to continue to 7%. Again, it's a paradox. They're canned most of their generals, we have spoken about it. And yes, they want to continue.
1,000 generals, right? 1,000 generals.
And they
Sir,
want
how
to
is it
continue with
possible to have so many generals, sir? Does India have like that? 1,000 generals?
No, we don't have. We don't have. That's a different story. But that's China, yeah. That's China. This is China which is coming out belly up. That's why I said it's an overinflated dragon. They want to boost domestic demand. That's their top priority. How to boost it, they have not said. Financial risk management, all their banks are on the verge of bankruptcy. See, why China is surviving is there's no firewall between the government and the banks. It's a communist system. The banks and the government are the, two sides of the same coin. And all this is being paid for by their people. Food prices, downward pressure. Core inflation, down. Producer prices index, down. They've been falling for 3 years. Sector-wise performance, this is very interesting. Sectors like healthcare grow up by 1.4% and tourism by 2%. And then they say GDP grow by 4%. How is it possible? Transportation has declined by 2.6% in 25. And housing by also is declining. So we are seeing now their lies being told, contradicted by their own. These are all official figures. This is not figures which I have got out of my own imagination. Now this is another very interesting article. Is the US in decline after Iran strikes? Maybe not, Chinese analysts say. The popular idea in China that American strength is winning may need a rethink. This is a country which is losing confidence in themselves. Please understand. And sirs, anyone who's watching this program, you might find it boring. But this is the hard bit. Because this is not my analysis or Sree Iyer's analysis. This is the analysis of the Chinese. The US decapitation of Iran's leaders highlights America's superior military strength. They're saying this, bhaiya tum baap ho mere. And it runs counter to the popular view in China that United States is in decline. This is their analysis. At some point of time, they're bloody worried. Tomorrow, if this mad guy is unleashed on us, what will happen in China? Venezuela and Iran showed that not only Washington's military strength remained superior, but also its method of warfare have evolved. China is stuck where it is. And then says US retains formidable strength, unparalleled global military power. They're talking. Sometime back they said no, China will do everything, China-centric world order, greatest PLA, all that. They held that great parade, showcased everything as if they are the greatest military power. Today, 3 months later, they're saying no, this American power is unparalleled. And the examples being quoted in this analysis, overthrowing Saddam Hussein's regime from 23, killing Al-Qaeda leader in Pakistan, capturing Maduro, now assassination of Khamenei. Over 20 years, they suddenly realize American can do all this, they can do nothing. This is what China is doing behind the scenes. Okay, America's war making capability depends solely on its will to deploy such power. China doesn't have that will. That's the tacit admission here that China doesn't have the will to deploy its power. So if it doesn't have the will, it doesn't have the power. Look, you can only have the will if you have the power. You don't have the will, you don't. I've been telling this often. What happened 6 months back, 8 months back, when we were, our ships were in the, the east coast of Africa, and we were hunting pirates. We were carrying anti-piracy operations this side of Red Sea, and US was doing everything that side of Red Sea. It demonstrated our capability to deploy forces and take on hostilities. And what was China doing then? They were running away. And yet we as a nation feel China is a superpower. Now, whatever I have said for the past 3 years from the day you and I, Mr. Sree Iyer, started talking about China, isn't it true?
True.
Prove me wrong. Okay, people, as late as after 24 when Trump got elected, so Chinese people were saying, China, US is regressing and it's in a crisis and all. All this is gone. They thought DeepSeek was the ultimate in AI and they won the battle. Now they're suddenly realizing even there, their bottom is falling out. That's what he also talks of this Beijing's grand victory day military parade. They showed everything, but there's no point. You don't know whether it will function or not. Venezuela and Iran showed that US forces had the swiftest application of military technology in the world. And look at the sentence. US military's rapid actions posed a cognitive challenge for China. Cognitive challenge for China? See how worried they are. Then they said Trump has been underestimated. Our understanding of Trumpism remains profoundly superficial. Right? In his view, the US military is merely a capability and means to achieve his objectives. They're suddenly worried. Now, Xi Jinping had said the East is rising and the West is declining. He's been saying it from 21. What I'm saying is in red. The West is not declining. China is. The East is not China alone. And as China declines, India will rise. And I've been saying this now for quite some time. This is China. They still want party over PLA. They want political rectification to deepen. They want to advance everything, but nothing can be done on ground. This is what their story is in all these articles. I'll not waste your time. Now they have acknowledged they're out of Panama. This heading, Panama out. Okay. They want to invest in people without a strategy. They don't have a strategy. If they invest in people and make people rich, Communist Party of China will be out of power. If people don't become rich, the country can't become rich. Oh, look at this. Chinese, see, these are all, they define the Chinese problem. Chinese EV makers increasingly reliant on exports as domestic sales decrease. So they need export. If they don't export, they're done. No, they're telling their cadres, don't focus on GDP. They say don't focus on GDP, but they give a target. We have to achieve that GDP. See the contradictions which are coming out from China. These contradictions were never seen some time back when they were confident that they'll conquer the world. Right? They also put just before the 2 sessions. This happened last week, isn't it? Not even last week, about 3 days back. 9 military officials more taken out. See, that story is going. Internal churn. Yeah, I think I've done for whatever I've had to explain. This is the map. This is the thing. This is China. China can do very little. Yeah, they've given some missiles they'll give, some space thing they'll give all that, but it will not make any difference. In fact, China is at this point of time, my assessment, they're bracing for the impact. There's impact we'll see in the next 6 months. And see the difference between where China is and where India is going today. Okay. I mean, one way of looking at it is Alexander Stubb came, polished one side of our apple. The Iranian Prime Minister came and polished the other side of our apple. Both these guys across the divide are polishing our apple, not the Chinese apple.
Right.
Right? You have to understand where this world is going. We have to see, reality check. I do hope all of you who are watching such programs which we give between Sree Iyer and self, we are doing it very purposefully. Understand this whole story. We come with facts and figures. It might be a little boring, but you'll get a clearer understanding. Back to you, sir.
Thank you so much, General Shankar. So, last few days, especially since I think after March 2nd or 3rd, the Chinese consulate in Tehran has been furiously trying to trash all the documents. Why? Well, the problem is that Iran is under sanctions to ship crude oil, and China was buying them by the billions of barrels. So, and you know what they did, General Shankar? They named it as something else. The problem now is, how do you walk all these things back? Because when Trump comes calling in April, okay, so this is one story. The other story is somebody close to Xi Jinping has leaked all these things to CIA. So they have all the data. They have all the data. And anecdotal evidence is showing that Iranian high net individuals are trying to move their bitcoins into a safe haven like Coinbase in the United States. Why? Because they're afraid that if it is in one of the other places, most likely it was somewhere in Macau or something that is administered by China, that when they have to run, they will not be able to get their bitcoins.
Gone.
Take it out of this Bitcoin wallet, put it in this Bitcoin wallet. That's what they are doing. Big way. Now, the interesting question that comes is this all Bitcoin? Was this all Bitcoin was used for? We know it was used for, drug money to be moved. And looks like this is the other one. And the bank also has been caught. TD Bank out of Canada. They have paid the biggest fine ever paid by any bank in the history. $3 billion to US, because they laundered money for the drug cartels. Sir, this thing is mind-blowing. Trump has done some incredible work, General Shankar. You can agree with him or not agree with him.
Yeah, no.
He has brought out.
Look, I'm in part agreement with what he has done. But if he had handled Iran slightly differently, he would have been laughing all his way to the bank and the polls.
Right.
I mean, what he's done is, this is my view, and I think he's done a lot of things right, but here he has done, it's a misstep. And if I know Trump, if I have read him this thing, he'll find a solution to this. It might cost him hell of a lot. He might find a solution. But for that solution, he has to make a deal. How that deal will come out is to be seen. But I think what Iran has done has put that beyond the pale. That's my view. We'll see how it goes.
Yes, indeed, sir. Now let's take a few questions from our viewers.